When I was 9 years old, I appeared on a CBBC show called The Mighty Truck of Stuff. Do you remember it? Probably not. After all, it only lasted 2 series. The first consisted of 10 episodes in 2005, and the second consisted of 16 episodes in 2006. The show revolved around the premise of giving away a mighty truck of, well, stuff, to one of the viewers at home. Some good stuff, some not so good stuff, but we'll get to that in a bit. In Series 1 of The Mighty Truck of Stuff, the episodes were 60 minutes long. But for Series 2, the episodes were nearly 3 hours long. And this was the series that I appeared in. The show aired on Saturday mornings and was presented by Reggie Yates, who you might recognise from Radio 1 or his small role in Doctor Who's Martha's Brother, or from the CBBC show The Mighty Truck of Stuff. Well, as a kid, it was always my dream to be on not The Mighty Truck of Stuff. I mean, I would watch the show, but that was only because it replaced Dick and Dom in the Bungalow during the summer months. Now, that was the show that I wanted to be on. That was the show I applied to and didn't get chosen for. Thinking about it, I don't think my parents ever even sent off the application. Dick and Dom in the Bungalow was my favourite show. I'll still watch old episodes of it to this day. And, of course, I made sure to get VIP tickets to see the live revival a couple years ago. One day I'll make a full retrospective of that show, but not today, as today I'm talking about the show that a family member of mine did sign me up for, The Mighty Truck of Stuff. So my application got accepted for me and my friend Josh to go and be a part of the filming for the show, and the show aired live at 9 AM. And I believe we had to get there for 7 AM, and that was already a 2-hour drive from my house, so that meant we had to wake up at stupid o'clock. Like 4 AM, a time that should only exist if you're catching a plane. Before we left, we stuck a recordable VHS in every single TV in the house and started it recording, which is the footage that you're currently seeing. We had to line up outside a studio somewhere in London with a load of other families, and they were only accepting the first 100 children. Thankfully, we were far enough near the front of the line so that we didn't have our day ruined. But I remember thinking about the poor kids at the back of the line who just had to go home. A man who worked for the BBC then came up to us and started chatting to me and my parents, and asked if I ever called in to try and win the Mighty Truck of Stuff. And I said to him, nah, it's just a scam, it's not like you actually stand a chance of winning. Which my mum then told me was the wrong thing to say. She told me to lie, to butter these people up so I could maybe get a larger role on the show. And, I mean, thank God I wasn't in line to be on Jim Will Fix It. Well, with my mum's terrible advice ringing in my ears, we left my parents and all the kids were brought into a giant auditorium, where I quickly got split up from my friend Josh. And it didn't take long for a group of kids to start making fun of me for being there by myself. Which, I mean, I didn't even want to be. I wanted to sit with Josh, but they didn't let me. I was starting to see the harsh reality of showbiz, the brutality of it, the backstabbing. I mean, admittedly, my friend was only 4 seats away in the auditorium, so when I leant over to speak to him, the kids did shut up. Now, something important to note about the Mighty Truck of Stuff is that the truck is filled with prizes. But during the show, Reggie Yates also competes in challenges to try to win toys from the kids on the show, like me. Which meant that one condition for being on the show was that each kid had to bring in a toy for Reggie to try to win. My mum, thinking that the quality of the toy would relate to how big my role in the show was, bought me a Darth Vader Mr. Potato Head from Harrods to give. It was called Darth Tater, which is both the worst and best pun ever. And as I sat down with all the other kids who were also holding their toys, I realised this was a bit of a mistake, as they all had bought in the very worst toys ever. Things which barely even qualify as toys. I saw one boy was holding the wrapper to a fruit winder. That was his toy. Remember the little grease-proof paper in a fruit winder that would have a comic on it? Well, if you don't, I made a whole video about them here. Now, imagine calling up to try to win some kids' literal rubbish. This truck would have PlayStations and new bikes and an old fruit winder. And I was really starting to have second thoughts about giving away this Mr. Potato Head. Anyway, Mighty Truck of Stuff, as well as having a frankly absurd amount of children just standing around, some of them were actually involved in the show, given little jobs to do like pretending to man the phones, and then they'll often get involved in small sketches with Reggie. And it turns out that the way these children were selected was just some random guy would come into the auditorium and point out kids. So, the moment that started happening, I straightened myself up, held my Mr. Potato Head tightly to my chest, and awaited the inevitable finger point that was surely about to come my way. and it very nearly did. It pointed at someone just behind me. But my 9-year-old brain decided that was close enough to give me plausible deniability. So I got up from my seat, shuffled across, and walked down the auditorium towards the stage where the children who'd been selected were lining up. Once I reached the stage, heart pounding in my chest, the man throws a half glance my way and says, "Nah, not you, I pointed at the kid behind you." And I said, very cleverly, "No, you definitely pointed at me." Which, to my surprise, somehow didn't work. So I turned and made the long walk back across the auditorium to my seat, returning next to the kids who were now making fun of me even more. Whilst the kid who was actually pointed at, who had a McDonald's Milo Tweenies toy, might I add, was escorted away to most likely go have tea and crumpets with Reggie Yates, while the rest of us rejects were left behind. And you know what? Fine, I'll admit it, I'm still a little bit bitter about it. A McDonald's Milo Tweenie toy, I mean, come on. After what I'm pretty sure was an eternity, they brought us out to the actual set from the TV show, and that was admittedly very exciting. You could be in the red group, orange group, or yellow group, and me and Josh were stuck right there in the yellows, where we then just had to stand, which, if you're a kid, just standing for 3 hours in a spot that you can't move from isn't really as much fun as you might think. But then the show started and I forgot all about the aching in my feet. I was so excited to be only inches away from the Reggie Yates. Standing there watching as the TV show I kind of sort of thought was okay came to life before my eyes. The guest that week was Joe Swash, who, as a 9-year-old, I really didn't care much about. But in retrospect, was actually a pretty good guest. And that was the thing about this show, the guests were people only adults would really recognise. Out of all the shows I watched, I think I remember Joe Pasquale and Danny Harmer, and those were the only guests that I ever recognised. These guests would come on and crack some jokes and promote their new tour or something that just no kid would be old enough to care about. Other than the guests, it was still great seeing all the classic bits from the show in person, like Old Man, Fat Man, Bat Fan, where this guy shows up in an ill-fitting Batman costume. And in this episode, he massaged an old lady. Or there was the bit where guests had to speak with something in their mouth and have their drool sponged up. You know, all the classic bits from the show. Thankfully, the show would air a few full-length cartoons, which meant we were taken to another room and could sit on the floor for 5 minutes as they handed out a single shortbread biscuit each and the most watered-down squash you could imagine. I was just happy to be off my feet for a minute. The show continued on and Reggie finally competed in the yellow team's challenge. My challenge, except I was standing on the edge of the yellow team, so I basically wasn't in any of the shots. Here I am, I'm these 3 pixels right here. Reggie didn't even end up winning the challenge, which meant that I got to keep my Mr. Potato Head. Finally, the show came to a close with the big finale where all the kids run down the platforms and all dance. Well, as this happened, I figured it was now or never. This was my last chance to be centre stage, to be on TV, to probably get given my own TV show. So as everyone else was dancing to Bugsy Malone, I stared directly at the camera, and as it panned along the children, I moved along with it, pushing through kids so the camera had no choice but to stay on me. I thought this was it. I had done it. I was finally gonna be on TV. But then the cameraman leant out from behind his camera, started shouting at me and angrily gestured for me to move out of the shot. So there I stood, deflated amongst a sea of dancing kids as my hopes of TV stardom evaporated. When I got home, I found out they didn't even use the shot where I was following the camera around. I returned to school in September and immediately told everyone about my television debut, and my teacher even told me that if I brought the tape into school the next day, they would play it to the entire class. So I grabbed one of the VHS copies, packed it into my little book bag, and the next day they wheeled out that old TV that every school seemed to have, put the tape in, and the video started. And a minute in, the footage cut to the QVC channel, to someone selling some tat, because apparently someone had accidentally taped over the VHS. And so ended my short-lived TV career. The Mighty Truck of Stuff was cancelled soon after, and I can only assume I had something to do with it. I realised that the number of shows there were and the number of kids each of these shows had in their audiences, there's probably a good likelihood that you or someone you know was on one of these kid shows. If so, let me know in the comments. Whilst making this video, I saw a post on Reddit that asked about people being on CBBC shows, and this was by far my favourite answer. I have a mate who was on Prank Patrol. He was the kid being pranked and said it was a really shit experience. The prank was some guy shouting at him, and it scared him so much that he started crying. Apparently they made the kids redo the entire prank again so that they could get a better reaction. And I don't know, that's just hilarious to me. Also, my friend Joe was on the show Raw. So Joe, what was it like being on Raw?
Sorry?
So yeah, that was my experience being on the mighty truck of stuff. Let me know about any children's TV shows that you guys have been on. Oh, also, I've got a new book out. It's called Time Travel 101 Intro to Eternity. I spent ages writing it, and if you like what I do and want to support me and my channel, then definitely buy a copy. It's a sci-fi comedy like Rick and Morty or Doctor Who, and I don't know, you might enjoy it, or not. But it's available now and there's a link somewhere. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.